Jake Morrison stepped off the transport ship and stared at the massive building in front of him. The Stellar Academy looked like something from a dream. Tall towers reached toward the purple sky of Kepler Station. Strange symbols glowed on the walls. Students of all shapes and sizes walked through the main entrance. Jake took a deep breath. He was one of only 12 humans accepted to the Academy this year. Back on Earth, everyone called him lucky. His parents cried when he left. His little sister gave him her lucky coin. Now, standing here with aliens everywhere, Jake felt more scared than lucky. A blue-skinned student with 4 arms walked past him. 2 cat-like beings with silver fur talked in clicking sounds. Jake heard at least 6 different languages just standing there. He pulled his backpack closer and walked toward the registration building. The line moved slowly. Jake stood behind a student who looked like a walking tree. Green leaves grew from her head instead of hair. She smelled like flowers after rain. In front of her, a student with gray skin and no eyes used his hands to feel everything around him. "Next," called a voice from the registration desk. Jake stepped forward. Behind the desk sat a pale man with dark hair. He wore an expensive black suit. His teeth were very white and very sharp. A name tag on his desk read, "Victor Drockel, Resident Advisor." "Name?" Victor asked without looking up from his computer screen. "Jake Morrison," Jake said. "From Earth." Victor's fingers moved quickly over the keyboard. His skin looked cold like marble. Jake noticed Victor had no coffee cup or water bottle. Most people working long shifts had something to drink. Age? 18. Species? Human. Victor nodded and kept typing. His eyes looked tired. Very tired. Like he had not slept in days. A stack of papers on his desk was 3 feet tall. More students waited in line behind Jake. "Housing preference?" Victor asked. Whatever's normal for humans, I guess." Victor's eyes were getting heavy. He had been working for 16 hours straight. The synthetic blood he drank earlier was wearing off. His vision was blurry. He needed to process 200 more students before dawn. Jake waited while Victor stared at the computer screen. The vampire's finger moved over the mouse. He clicked on something. Then he clicked again. "Done," Victor said. He handed Jake a key card and a paper. "Room 237 in Monster Dorm. Your roommate is Zara Nightfang. Meal times are midnight 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. No sunlight allowed in the building. Welcome to Stellar Academy." Jake looked at the paper. Something felt wrong. "Excuse me, sir. Monster Dorm? I think there might be a mistake. I'm human." Victor was already calling for the next student. "Next!" Jake stepped aside and looked at his room assignment again. Monster Dorm, room 237, couples housing. Married student section married? Jake had never been married. He had never even had a serious girlfriend. And who was Zara Nightfang? What kind of name was Nightfang? Jake walked to the information booth. A friendly robot with a round screen for a face helped him find Monster Dorm. The building was on the other side of campus. It was painted black. All the windows were covered with thick curtains. A sign by the door read, "Warning, supernatural residents only. Standard species enter at own risk." Jake checked his paper again. This had to be wrong. But Victor seemed very busy. Maybe Jake could fix this later. He walked into Monster Dorm. The lobby was dark, very dark. Red lights gave everything a spooky look. The furniture was all black leather. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. It sounded like funeral music. A few students sat in the lobby. One looked like a normal college student, except he was covered in gray fur. His eyes glowed yellow in the dark. Another student was reading a book. She was so pale that Jake could see blue veins under her skin. Her fingernails were black and very long. They all looked at Jake when he walked in. The furry student sniffed the air. The pale girl's eyes got very wide. "Human," she whispered. Jake waved awkwardly. "Hi, I'm Jake. I think I'm supposed to live here." The furry student stood up. He was very tall. "You smell like fear," he said in a deep voice. "But also like confusion." "Yeah, that sounds about right," Jake said. Jake found the elevator and pressed the button for the second floor. The elevator music was more funeral sounds. When the doors opened, Jake walked down a long hallway. The carpet was dark red. Paintings on the walls showed old castles and full moons. Room 237 was at the end of the hall. Jake put his key card against the door. It beeped and opened. The room was amazing. It was 3 times bigger than the dorm rooms Jake had seen in the brochures. A huge bed with black silk sheets sat in the center. Thick curtains covered the windows. A mini fridge hummed in the corner. Everything was expensive and elegant. Jake dropped his backpack and walked around the room. There was a bathroom with a bathtub big enough for 4 people. The closet was the size of Jake's bedroom back home. Then he saw the other belongings. Expensive dresses hung in half the closet. They were all black or deep red. Shoes that cost more than Jake's family made in a month sat on shelves. Books written in languages Jake could not read were stacked on the desk. A small silver cup sat next to the mini fridge. Jake opened the mini fridge. It was full of blood bags. Actual blood bags like from a hospital. A note on the door said, "Type O negative, property of Z Nightfang." Jake closed the fridge quickly. His hands were shaking. The door opened behind him. Jake turned around and saw the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. She was tall with long black hair that shined like silk. Her skin was pale as snow. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than Jake's college tuition. Her eyes were bright blue, but they seemed to glow in the dark room. She stopped when she saw Jake. Her perfect eyebrows went up. "Who are you?" she asked. Her voice had an accent Jake could not place. It sounded old and elegant. "I'm Jake Morrison," he said. "I think I'm your roommate." She looked at the paper in Jake's hand. Then she looked at him again. Her eyes moved from his sneakers to his jeans, to his plain t-shirt to his messy brown hair. "You are human," she said. "Yes, you are male, yes. And you believe you are my roommate. That's what this paper says. But I think there might be a mistake." The woman walked to her side of the room. She moved like she was floating. Everything about her was graceful and elegant. She sat on the edge of the bed and looked at Jake again. "I am Zara Nightfang," she said. "I am a vampire. I am 347 years old. I come from one of the oldest vampire families in the galaxy. And according to your paper, I am your wife." Jake looked at the paper again. In small print at the bottom it said, "Married couple housing, special dietary needs accommodation." "Wife?" Jake's voice came out as a squeak. Zara smiled. Her teeth were very white and very sharp. "It appears that someone has made a very interesting mistake." Jake woke up at 6 in the morning. Back on Earth, this was normal. In Monster Dorm, this was very wrong. He sat up in bed and looked around. The room was still dark. Heavy curtains blocked all the sunlight. Zara was nowhere to be seen. Her side of the big bed was empty and perfectly made. Jake wondered if vampires even slept. His stomach made a loud noise. He was hungry. Jake got dressed and walked to the door. A schedule was taped to the wall. Meal times were at midnight, 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. It was past 6 a.m. now. Jake walked downstairs to the dining hall. It was empty except for one student. The furry student from yesterday sat alone at a large table. He was eating what looked like very rare steak. Blood dripped from the meat onto his plate. "You are up early," the furry student said. "Or late, I am not sure which." Jake sat down across from him. "I'm Jake. I don't think we met properly yesterday." "Lucas," the student said. He had yellow eyes like a wolf. "I am from Luna Colony." "We are werewolves there." "Werewolves," Jake repeated. "Like you turn into a wolf?" "I am always part wolf," Lucas said. "Full moon just makes it more obvious." A kitchen worker brought Jake a plate of food. The worker was green with tentacles instead of arms. Jake tried not to stare. "Thank you," Jake said. The green worker made a gurgling sound and went back to the kitchen. Jake looked at his food. It was normal human food. Eggs, toast, orange juice. He ate quietly while Lucas finished his bloody steak. "Your mate did not eat with you," Lucas said. "My what?" "The vampire female, Zara. Your scent is all over her room. Her scent is all over you. You are mated, yes?" Jake nearly choked on his orange juice. "We're not mated. We're not anything. This is all a big mistake." Lucas looked confused. "But you sleep in the same bed. You share the same space. This is how mates behave." "We don't sleep in the same bed," Jake said quickly. "I sleep on the couch." "The couch is very small," Lucas said. "And you smell like the bed sheets." Jake's face turned red. "Look, it's complicated. The housing office made a mistake. We're just trying to figure it out." Lucas nodded slowly. Human customs are strange. After breakfast, Jake went to his first class. Xenobiology was taught by Professor Green, who was actually green, and had 6 arms, and spoke in a voice that sounded like music. Jake sat in the back of the classroom. Most of the students were aliens he had never seen before. A few looked almost human, but with small differences. Blue skin, pointed ears, or extra eyes. 3 human students sat together in the front row. Jake recognized them from the orientation packet. Alex Carter had blonde hair and looked like he played sports. Ben Walsh was tall and thin with glasses. Katie Lou had short black hair and always carried a notebook. Jake wanted to sit with them, but class was already starting. He stayed in the back next to a student who looked like a walking crystal. Professor Green talked about blood types in different species. Jake took notes and tried to pay attention, but he kept thinking about Zara and the blood bags in their mini fridge. After class, Alex, Ben, and Katie walked over to Jake. "Hey," Alex said. "You're Jake Morrison, right? From the human group?" "Yeah," Jake said. "We heard you're living in Monster Dorm," Katie said. Her voice sounded worried. "Is that true?" Jake nodded. "There was a mistake with my housing assignment." "Dude," Ben said, pushing his glasses up. "Monster Dorm is for the dangerous species. Vampires, werewolves, things that eat other students. Why would they put you there?" "I don't know," Jake said. "I'm trying to fix it." "You need to be careful," Alex said. "Those creatures are not like us. They don't think like humans. They might hurt you." Jake thought about Zara. She had not hurt him. She had been confused but not mean. And Lucas seemed friendly enough even if he did eat very bloody meat. "They seem okay," Jake said. Katie shook her head. "Jake, vampires drink blood. Werewolves hunt in packs. These are predators. You're prey to them. Just stay away from them until you can get moved," Ben said. "Don't trust them." The 3 humans walked away together. Jake felt alone watching them go. That afternoon, Jake had Galactic history class. He sat in his usual spot in the back. Halfway through class, someone sat down next to him. It was Zara. She moved so quietly that Jake did not hear her come in. She wore a dark blue dress and had a notebook made of real paper. Most students used electronic tablets, but Zara wrote with an expensive pen. "Good afternoon," she whispered. "Hi," Jake whispered back. Professor Stone was talking about the war between Earth and the Vegan colonies. Jake tried to listen, but he kept noticing things about Zara. She wrote in perfect handwriting. She never moved or shifted in her seat. She did not seem to breathe. When class ended, Zara turned to Jake. "You left early this morning," she said. "I was hungry, and I didn't want to wake you up." "I do not sleep during the day," Zara said. "I rest, but I am aware of sounds." They walked out of the classroom together. Students in the hallway stared at them. A vampire and a human walking together was unusual. "Can I ask you something?" Jake said. "Of course. Why haven't you tried to drink my blood?" Zara stopped walking. She looked surprised by the question. "Why would I do that?" "Because you're a vampire. And I'm human. Isn't that what vampires do?" Zara was quiet for a moment. "Do all humans steal things just because they are capable of stealing?" "No, of course not." "Then why would all vampires drink blood from unwilling people just because we are capable of it?" Jake felt stupid. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to assume. The blood in our refrigerator comes from volunteers," Zara said. "People who sell their blood for money. It is a business arrangement. I have never taken blood by force." They reached Monster Dorm. In the lobby, Lucas was playing chess with another student. The other student was a girl with long silver hair. When she moved her chess piece, she let out a high, sad sound like singing. "That is Nina," Zara said quietly. "She is a banshee. Her people can predict death, but the knowledge makes them very sad. The sounds she makes help her deal with the sadness." Jake watched Nina move another chess piece. Her song was beautiful but heartbreaking. "Lucas told me you and I are mated," Jake said. Zara almost smiled. "Lucas thinks any male and female who share space are mated. His people have very simple relationship rules. So we're not married?" "Not unless you filled out paperwork I am not aware of." They went up to their room. Jake sat on the couch while Zara sat at the desk. She opened a textbook for human cultural studies. "Can I help you with that?" Jake asked. "You would help me study humans." "I am human. I probably know a few things about human culture." Zara turned in her chair to look at him. "Why would you help me?" "Your human friends think I am dangerous." Jake thought about Alex, Ben, and Katie. They meant well, but they did not know Zara. They only knew stories about vampires. "Because we're roommates," Jake said, "and roommates help each other." Zara smiled. It was the first real smile Jake had seen from her. Her sharp teeth did not look scary anymore. They just looked like part of who she was. "Very well," she said. "Tell me about human holiday traditions." Jake moved from the couch to sit near her desk. For the next 2 hours, he explained Christmas, Halloween, and 4th of July. Zara asked good questions and took careful notes. When they finished studying, Zara looked at her clock. It was almost midnight. Time for dinner, she said. They went downstairs together. The dining hall was full now. Lucas waved them over to his table. Nina sat next to him, humming quietly while she ate soup. A few other Monster Dorm students sat with them. Jake got a normal dinner. Zara got a wine glass full of something red. Jake tried not to think about what was in the glass. "How were your classes today, new human?" Lucas asked. "Good. Zara helped me understand some things. And Jake helped me with my human cultural studies homework," Zara said. Lucas nodded approvingly. "This is good pack behavior. You help each other. You share knowledge. You are becoming proper mates, we're not mates," Jake and Zara said at the same time. Everyone at the table laughed. Even Nina's sad humming sounded amused. That night, Jake lay on the couch and listened to Zara moving around the room. She was reading by the light of a small lamp. Sometimes she wrote in her notebook. Jake found the sounds comforting. For the first time since arriving at the academy, he did not feel alone. Maybe living in Monster Dorm would not be so bad after all. 3 weeks later, Jake had learned many things. He learned that Nina's sad songs actually helped other students sleep better. He learned that Lucas turned into a full wolf every night at 2 a.m., but he was still the same friendly person. He learned that vampires could eat normal food, but it did not give them energy like blood did. Most importantly, he learned that Zara was nothing like the scary stories he had heard about vampires. Jake woke up on the couch like every morning. But this time Zara was sitting at the desk with books spread everywhere. She looked frustrated. "Problem?" Jake asked, sitting up and rubbing his eyes. "Human cultural studies," Zara said. "I do not understand American dating customs. The textbook says humans go to movies together, but it does not explain why sitting in the dark without talking helps people know each other better." Jake laughed. "That's because the textbook is probably written by aliens who don't understand humans either. Then how am I supposed to pass this class?" Jake got up and walked over to her desk. "What's your next assignment?" Zara showed him the paper. "I must write a report about human holiday celebrations and explain why they are important to human social bonding." "I can help with that," Jake said. "I've celebrated all the major human holidays." They spent the morning working together. Jake explained why humans gave gifts on Christmas and why they dressed up for Halloween. Zara took notes in her perfect handwriting and asked smart questions. "So humans create fear for fun during Halloween?" Zara asked. "Yeah, basically. But the rest of the year humans avoid fear?" "Most of the time, yes," Zara shook her head. "Humans are very complicated." Later that day, they had xenobiology together. Professor Green announced that students would work in pairs for their next project. They had to research and present on interspecies nutritional requirements. Jake looked around the classroom. Alex, Ben, and Katie were already partnering together, even though it was supposed to be pairs. Most of the other students were finding partners too. "Would you like to work together?" Zara asked quietly. Jake nodded. "That would be great." They spent the next week researching together. Zara knew things about alien biology that were not in any textbook. She had lived for over 300 years and met dozens of different species. Draconian lizard people need very high salt content in their food, she explained while they worked in the library. But too much salt will kill a human, so mixed crews on spaceships have to carry 2 different types of meals. "How do you know that?" Jake asked. "I dated a Draconian ship captain for 30 years, Zara said casually. Jake tried not to think about Zara dating other people. Or aliens or anyone. He focused on taking notes. "What about vampires?" Jake asked. "What are your nutritional needs?" "Blood, obviously, but also iron and protein supplements. Pure blood diet causes vitamin deficiencies after a few decades." Jake wrote this down. "And humans?" "Humans are very flexible," Zara said. "You can eat almost anything organic and survive. Most species are much more limited." The night before their presentation, they practiced in their room. Jake handled the scientific research while Zara provided real-world examples from her long life. "We make a good team," Jake said after they finished. "Yes," Zara agreed. "We do." Something in her voice made Jake look at her. She was standing by the window, looking out through a gap in the curtains. The moonlight made her pale skin glow. "Zara, is everything okay?" "I have been thinking," she said without turning around. About what happens when the housing office fixes their mistake. Jake had not thought about that in days. He had gotten used to living with Zara. He liked their late-night study sessions and early morning conversations. He liked how she always made sure he had human food in their mini-fridge. He liked the way she laughed at his jokes, even the bad ones. Maybe they won't fix it, Jake said. They will eventually, and then you will move to normal human housing, with Alex and Ben and Katie. Maybe I don't want to live with them. Zara turned to look at him. You would choose to stay here? With monsters? You're not monsters, Jake said. You're just different. The next day, they gave their presentation. Professor Green listened carefully while Jake explained the science and Zara shared her personal experiences. Other students asked good questions. Even Alex looked impressed. Excellent work, Professor Green said when they finished. This is exactly the kind of interspecies cooperation we hope to see at this academy. You have both earned perfect marks. After class, Alex, Ben, and Katie walked over to Jake. Nice presentation, Alex said. But are you sure it's smart to get so close to her? What do you mean? Jake asked. Vampires are predators, Ben said, pushing up his glasses. They're designed to hunt humans. She might be manipulating you. Jake felt angry. Zara isn't manipulating anyone. She's my friend. Jake, Katie said gently. We're worried about you. You've changed since you moved to Monster Dorm. You eat at weird times. You hang out with dangerous aliens. You're starting to act like one of them. Maybe that's because I like them better than I like humans who judge people without getting to know them. Jake said. He walked away before they could respond. That afternoon, Jake had combat preparedness class. This was a required class for all students. They learned basic self-defense and how to handle dangerous situations. The teacher was Commander Rex, a military veteran from the Mars colonies. He was tough but fair. Today, they were practicing defense against mental attacks. Some species can influence your thoughts, Commander Rex explained. Zeltrons use pheromones to control emotions. Betazoids can read minds. You need to learn to recognize when someone is messing with your head. Jake was paired with a student named Chris. Chris looked almost human, but his skin had a slight pink color, and he always smelled like flowers. Jake remembered from his textbooks that Zeltrons could produce chemicals that affected other people's moods. Try to resist my influence, Chris said with a smile. Suddenly, Jake felt very happy, then very sad, then very angry. The emotions were not his own. They felt artificial, like someone was controlling his feelings with a remote control. I can feel you doing something, Jake said, struggling to think clearly. Good, Chris said. Most humans cannot resist at all. But then Chris tried something else. Jake felt a strong urge to like Chris, to trust him completely, to do whatever Chris wanted. Tell me about your vampire roommate, Chris said in a friendly voice. I bet she drinks your blood when you sleep. The suggestion felt wrong. Jake knew Zara would never hurt him. But the artificial emotions made it hard to think straight. She doesn't. Jake struggled with the words. Of course she does, Chris continued, his voice getting more persuasive. That's what vampires do. She's probably been drugging your food to make you compliant. Jake felt his resistance weakening. The pheromones were very strong. Maybe Chris was right. Maybe Zara was just using him. Suddenly, a cold voice cut through the artificial emotions. Remove your influence from my husband immediately. Jake turned and saw Zara standing behind them. Her eyes were glowing red with anger. Her fangs were fully extended. She looked absolutely terrifying. Chris stepped back quickly. The artificial emotions disappeared from Jake's mind. I was just practicing, Chris said nervously. Commander Rex told us to. Commander Rex told you to practice basic resistance training, Zara said, her voice deadly calm. He did not tell you to make false accusations about me while manipulating my partner's emotions. Partner? Chris looked confused. You mean the human is really your mate? That is none of your business, Zara said. But if you ever use your abilities to manipulate him again, I will show you why vampires were feared warriors long before we became diplomats. Commander Rex walked over. Is there a problem here? No problem, Zara said sweetly. Her fangs disappeared and her eyes stopped glowing. Chris was just learning about the limits of his abilities. Chris nodded quickly. No problem at all. After class, Jake and Zara walked back to Monster Dorm together. Thank you, Jake said. That was getting really intense. Zeltron pheromones can be dangerous if used wrongly, Zara said. Chris was using much more influence than necessary for a training exercise. "You called me your husband," Jake said. Zara's pale cheeks turned slightly pink. "I was angry." It was the first word that came to mind. They walked in comfortable silence for a while. "Zara," Jake said, "what Chris suggested about you drugging my food and drinking my blood while I sleep. You know I don't believe that, right?" "I know," Zara said quietly. "But thank you for saying so." That evening, Dean Morrison called them to her office. Dean Morrison was a stern woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Her office was filled with awards and pictures from her long career. "Please sit down," she said. Jake and Zara sat in chairs across from her desk. "I have been watching your academic progress," Dean Morrison said. "Your joint presentation in xenobiology was exceptional. Your test scores are among the highest in your classes, and several professors have commented on your effective partnership." "Thank you," Jake said. "However," the dean continued, "I have also received your housing correction request from 3 weeks ago. It seems there was an error in your room assignment." Jake's heart sank. He had forgotten about the request he filed on his first day. "We can move you to standard human housing immediately," the dean said to Jake. "Room 45 in Collins. Hall is available." Jake looked at Zara. Her face showed no emotion, but midterm season arrived like a storm. Students all over the academy were stressed, tired, and worried about failing. In Monster Dorm, the stress was even worse. Jake woke up one morning to the sound of howling. Lucas was in his wolf form, pacing around the lobby and making distressed noises. Nina sat in a corner, singing a particularly sad song that made everyone who heard it feel hopeless. "What's wrong with everyone?" Jake asked Zara at breakfast. "Midterms affect supernatural students differently," Zara explained. "Lucas cannot control his transformations when he is stressed. Nina's sadness affects everyone around her. The banshee emotions are contagious." Jake looked around the dining hall. Several students looked miserable. A few were crying. One student who looked like he was made of rocks was literally crumbling from anxiety. "This is not normal stress," Jake said. "No," Zara agreed, "but we do not know how to fix it." After breakfast, Jake was walking to class when he heard shouting from the gymnasium. He went to investigate and found Lucas in human form arguing with a pale student named Dimitri. "I need the gym at night," Lucas said, his voice growling. "Full moon is in 3 days. I have to prepare." "Nighttime is vampire hours," Dimitri replied coldly. "We reserved this space weeks ago for combat practice." "Werewolves have been using the gym during full moon periods for 50 years, Lucas said. "It is tradition." "Vampires have been using the gym at night for 100 years, Dimitri shot back. "Our tradition is older." Both students looked ready to fight. Lucas's eyes were turning yellow. Dimitri's fangs were showing. "Guys," Jake said, stepping between them. "Why don't you just share?" They both turned to stare at him. "Share?" Lucas said. "How do we share the gym?" Jake thought for a moment. "When exactly do you need it?" "Full moon nights," Lucas said. 3 nights per month. "What about new moon nights?" Jake asked Dimitri. "Do vampires need extra practice time then?" Dimitri looked confused. "New moon nights?" Yes, actually. New moons make us stronger. We do advanced training then." "So Lucas gets the gym during full moon periods," Jake said. "Dimitri gets it during new moon periods. The rest of the time you share it normally." Lucas and Dimitri looked at each other. Then they looked at Jake. "That is actually a good solution," Dimitri said slowly. "Why did we not think of this?" Lucas asked. "Because you were both too angry to think clearly," Jake said. "Happens to humans all the time." Word of Jake's solution spread through Monster Dorm quickly. By evening, 3 more students had asked him to help solve their problems. The crystal student, whose name was Jem, was having trouble with his roommate Splash, who was made of living water. Jem needed dry conditions to stay healthy. Splash needed humid conditions to stay solid. "Can you get a room divider?" Jake suggested. "Put a humidifier on Splash's side and a dehumidifier on Jem's side." "What is a humidifier?" Splash asked in a voice like running water. Jake spent an hour explaining human air conditioning technology. By the end, Jem and Splash were both excited to try the solution. Next problem came from Nina. She was failing her classes because her sad songs made other students too depressed to study. "Have you tried singing happier songs?" Jake asked. Nina looked at him like he had suggested she grow wings. I am a banshee. We do not sing happy songs. But you could sing less sad songs, right? Like maybe songs about hope instead of death? Nina thought about this. I never considered that. Banshee songs are usually about endings. But endings can lead to new beginnings. That evening, Nina tried singing a song about sunrise after a long night. It was still sad, but it made people feel like things might get better. Students actually started studying better with Nina's hopeful music in the background. Professor Zhang, who taught conflict resolution, heard about Jake's success with student problems. She asked him to stay after class. I have been watching your work with your fellow students, she said. Your solutions are very effective. Have you studied mediation techniques? No, Jake said. I just try to think about what everyone really needs instead of what they say they want. Professor Zhang nodded. That is the foundation of good conflict resolution. Would you be interested in helping with a larger problem? She explained that 2 dorm buildings were having a major dispute. Science dorm and arts dorm had been fighting over practice space, funding, and class schedules for months. The arguments were getting worse instead of better. I think your outsider perspective might help, Professor Zhang said. You see solutions that others miss because you are not caught up in old grudges. Jake agreed to try. The next day, he met with representatives from both dorms. Science dorm was led by a serious student named Core 7, who was actually an advanced computer program in a robot body. Arts dorm was represented by Melody, a student whose people communicated through colors and sounds. Science students need quiet spaces for calculations and experiments, Core 7 explained in his electronic voice. Art students make too much noise with their creative activities. Creative expression requires freedom and space, Melody said, her skin changing to angry red colors. Science students want to control everything and remove all spontaneity. Jake listened to both sides for over an hour. They had valid points, but they were so focused on their differences that they could not see possible compromises. What times of day do science students need the most quiet? Jake asked. Morning hours are optimal for complex calculations, Core 7 replied. When do art students do their loudest activities? Jake asked Melody. Her skin shifted to thoughtful purple. Evening hours are traditional for group performances and collaborative projects. So science students use the shared spaces in the morning, Jake said. Art students get them in the evening, and during the afternoon, you split the spaces between quiet study areas and creative areas. Both students looked surprised. You would also need some mixed activities, Jake continued. Science students could help art students with technical aspects of their projects. Art students could help science students with presentation skills. Collaboration between dorms? Melody's skin turned curious orange. That has not been tried before. Our programs have very different goals, Core 7 said. But you both want your students to succeed, Jake pointed out. And you both want to use the academy resources effectively. By the end of the meeting, both representatives agreed to try Jake's suggestions for 1 month. Professor Zhang was impressed. You have a natural talent for this, she told. Jake, I am recommending you for advanced conflict resolution. Classes next semester, but Jake's success with student problems created a new issue. Other human students began to avoid him even more. You spend all your time with aliens, Alex said during lunch. You solve their problems, you speak up for them. You act like you care more about them than about your own species. They are my friends, Jake said. They are not human, Ben said firmly. When this academy ends, you will go back to human space and they will go back to their worlds. These friendships are temporary. Katie looked sad. Jake, we are trying to help you. Humans need to stick together here. We are outnumbered by thousands of alien students. If we do not support each other, who will? Jake understood their concern, but he could not agree with them. I support humans, but I also support anyone who needs help, regardless of their species. That is a very naive way to think, Alex said. Aliens will use your kindness against you. That evening, Jake told Zara about the conversation while they studied together. Your human friends think I am using you, Zara said quietly. Are you? Jake asked. Zara looked up from her textbook. What do you think? Jake looked at her sitting at the desk they now shared. Her books were mixed with his books. Her clothes hung next to his clothes in the closet. She had made sure their mini fridge always had both blood and human food. She helped him with his hardest classes. She defended him when other students tried to manipulate him. I think you are the most honest person I have ever met, Jake said. Something changed in Zara's expression. Her usual controlled mask slipped for just a moment. Jake saw surprise, then happiness, then something that looked like fear. "Jake," she said softly, "you should know that I—" The door burst open. Lucas ran in, his eyes wild with panic. "Jake, you must help. There is a challenge." "What kind of challenge?" Jake asked, standing up quickly. "A formal duel," Lucas said, his voice shaking with anger. "Vex from Altair Dorm has challenged you to single combat." Jake felt cold. "Why would he challenge me?" "He says humans do not belong in Monster Dorm," Lucas explained. "He says you're an insult to all true supernatural species. He says you must be beaten publicly to restore proper order." Zara stood up so fast her chair fell over. "He cannot challenge Jake. Jake is not a warrior species." "Academy law is clear," Lucas said miserably. "Any student can challenge any other student. If Jake refuses, he will be expelled for cowardice." Jake sat down heavily. Vex was an Altarian, a species known for their strength and fighting skills. Altarians were 7 feet tall with 4 arms and skin like armor. Jake was a normal human who had never been in a real fight. "When is the duel?" Jake asked. "Tomorrow at sunset," Lucas said. "In the main arena. All students will watch." Jake looked at Zara. Her face was pale even for a vampire. Her hands were clenched into fists. "I have to do this, don't I?" Jake said. "Yes," Lucas said sadly. "You have to fight him, or leave the academy, Fa." Jake woke up on the morning of the duel feeling sick to his stomach. Today he would fight Vex in front of the entire academy. Today he would probably lose badly and get expelled. Zara was already awake, sitting at their desk writing something. She had been quiet since their conversation the night before. "What are you writing?" Jake asked. "A letter to my family," she said without looking up, "in case something happens to me." "Something happens to you?" "I'm the one who has to fight." Zara finally turned to look at him. Her blue eyes were determined. "If Vex seriously hurts you, I will make him pay for it. My family should know why I chose to break the peace treaty between vampires and Altarians." "Zara, no. You can't get involved. That will just make everything worse." "I cannot just watch him hurt you," she said fiercely. Jake got up and walked over to her. He took her cold hands in his warm ones. "I need you to promise me something," he said. "No matter what happens in that arena, do not interfere. Do not seek revenge. Just remember that whatever happens, last night was the best night of my life." Zara's eyes filled with tears she could not shed. "Jake, promise me." "I promise," she whispered. Jake spent the day trying to prepare for the fight. Lucas taught him basic defensive moves. Nina sang encouraging songs that actually made him feel a little braver. Even Gem and Splash offered advice about fighting opponents who were bigger and stronger. But Jake knew the truth. He was a normal human going up against a warrior alien who had 4 arms, armored skin, and decades of combat training. This was not going to end well. As the sun began to set, students gathered in the main arena. The circular fighting space was surrounded by seats that rose up like a bowl. Hundreds of alien students filled the stands. Jake saw Alex, Ben, and Katie sitting with the other humans. They looked worried. Most of the Monster Dorm students sat together in one section. Lucas, Nina, Gem, Splash, Dimitri, and dozens of others had come to support Jake. Zara sat in the front row, her face calm but her hands clenched tightly. Dean Morrison stood in the center of the arena with Professor Zhang and Commander Rex. They would oversee the duel to make sure it followed Academy rules. Vex entered from the east side of the arena. He was even bigger than Jake remembered, 7 feet tall with gray armored skin and 4 powerful arms. He moved like a professional fighter, confident and dangerous. The Altarian students in the stands cheered loudly for him. Jake entered from the west side. He looked small and ordinary compared to Vex. Some students laughed. Others looked sorry for him. The Monster Dorm section was quiet but supportive. "Students," Dean Morrison announced, her voice carrying across the arena, "this is a formal challenge duel. The rules are simple. Fight until one person surrenders or cannot continue. No weapons. No outside assistance. No killing blows." She looked at both fighters. "Do you understand the rules?" "Yes," Vex said in a deep voice. "Yes," Jake said, his voice cracking slightly. "Do either of you wish to withdraw the challenge?" Vex smiled, showing sharp teeth. The human insults all true monsters by living where he does not belong. He must be taught his place. Dean Morrison looked at Jake. "Do you wish to withdraw?" Jake looked up at the Monster Dorm section. At Lucas, who had taught him about pack loyalty. At Nina, who had learned to sing hopeful songs. At Dimitri, who now shared the gym peacefully. At Zara, who believed he was brave even when he did not feel brave. "No," Jake said firmly. "I do not withdraw." "Then let the challenge begin." Vex immediately rushed at Jake with all four arms swinging. Jake dove to the side, barely avoiding the attack. The crowd made excited noises. For the first few minutes, Jake just tried to avoid getting hit. Vex was stronger and had more arms, but he was also bigger and slower. Jake used his smaller size to stay away from those dangerous fists. But dodging was not a strategy. It was just delaying the inevitable. Eventually, Vex landed a hit that sent Jake rolling across the arena floor. Pain shot through Jake's ribs where the armored fist had connected. "Is that all you can do, human?" Vex taunted. "Run and hide like the weak creature you are?" Jake got back to his feet, breathing heavily. His ribs hurt, but he could still move. "Humans do not belong with monsters," Vex continued, circling Jake like a predator. "You are prey animals. You should accept your place in the natural order." "The natural order?" Jake said, wiping blood from his lip. "You mean the old way of thinking? The way that kept different species fighting each other for thousands of years?" Vex charged again. This time Jake was ready. Instead of dodging to the side, he dropped down and rolled between Vex's legs. As he came up behind the bigger alien, Jake used a move Lucas had taught him. He grabbed Vex's ankle and pulled. Vex stumbled, but did not fall. He spun around and backhanded Jake with one of his lower arms. Jake went down hard. "You cannot win, human," Vex said, standing over him. "Your species is inferior. You are weak, short-lived, and fragile." Jake struggled to get up. Everything hurt now. But something Vex said made him angry. "You're right," Jake said, getting to his feet slowly. "Humans are weaker than Altarians. We die younger. We break easier." Vex looked surprised. He had expected Jake to deny it. "But you know what humans are really good at?" Jake continued, circling Vex carefully. "We are good at working with others. We are good at finding solutions that help everyone. We are good at seeing past old prejudices to make new friendships." "Friendship will not help you in combat," Vex sneered. "Won't it?" Jake asked. He used another move Lucas had taught him. But this time he combined it with something Nina had shown him about using sound as distraction, and something Zara had explained about reading an opponent's body language to predict their next move. Jake feinted left, made a sharp whistle that distracted Vex for a split second, then dove right and swept Vex's legs with a perfect technique. This time Vex went down. The crowd went wild. Jake had actually knocked down the bigger fighter. But Vex got up quickly and now he was angry. "Lucky trick, human. It will not work twice." The fight continued. Jake could not match Vex's strength, but he had learned things from all his Monster Dorm friends. He used werewolf pack tactics, vampire prediction skills, banshee distraction techniques, and even some crystal formation strategies that Jem had taught him. Each time Vex adapted to one approach, Jake switched to another. The bigger alien was getting frustrated. "Why will you not fight properly?" Vex demanded after Jake avoided another charging attack. "I am fighting properly," Jake said, breathing hard. "I'm fighting like a human." "Humans have no honor," Vex shouted. "You use tricks instead of strength." "I use intelligence instead of strength," Jake corrected. "That's what humans do. We adapt, we learn. We find new ways to solve old problems." Vex was getting tired now. Forearms used a lot of energy, especially when most of his attacks missed their target. His movements were getting sloppy. Jake saw his chance. He used one final combination move. Lucas's pack coordination, Nina's timing, Dimitri's precision, and Zara's patience all together. As Vex threw a wild punch with all four arms, Jake stepped inside his reach, grabbed the bigger alien's center arm, and used Vex's own momentum to throw him with a perfect hip toss. Vex hit the ground hard and stayed down. Stunned, the arena went silent. Jake stood over his opponent, breathing heavily and bleeding from several cuts, but he was still standing. "Do you yield?" Jake asked. Vex looked up at him with shock and anger. "This is not possible. Humans are inferior." "Humans are different," Jake said, offering his hand to help Vex up. "Different is not the same as inferior." Vex stared at the offered hand. In Altarian culture, helping a defeated enemy was a sign of great honor and strength. Slowly, Vex took Jake's hand and let himself be pulled to his feet. I yield," Vex said quietly. The monster dorm section exploded in cheers. Lucas howled with joy. Nina sang the most beautiful victory song anyone had ever heard. Even the human students were clapping and cheering. Dean Morrison walked over to them. "The challenge is complete," she announced. "Jake Morrison is the victor." But then she did something unexpected. She smiled. "Mr. Morrison," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "your performance today was remarkable. You demonstrated intelligence, adaptability, creativity, and honor. These are exactly the qualities we look for in our most advanced students." She paused and looked around the arena. "I am pleased to announce that you have been accepted into the Galactic Diplomatic Corps training program." Effective immediately, the crowd erupted again. The Galactic Diplomatic Corps was the most prestigious program at the Academy. Only the top students were invited, but Jake was not looking at Dean Morrison or listening to the crowd. He was looking up at Zara, who was crying tears of joy. Later that evening, back in Monster Dorm, there was a huge celebration. Students from other dorms came to congratulate Jake. Even some of the Altarian students stopped by to say that Vex had needed to learn humility. Alex, Ben, and Katie found Jake in the lobby. "That was incredible," Alex said, shaking Jake's hand. "We're sorry we doubted you. And we're sorry we said bad things about your friends here," Katie added, looking around at the Monster Dorm students. "They really care about you. Maybe we could get to know them better," Ben suggested. "If you think they would not mind hanging out with regular humans." Lucas overheard and grinned, showing his fangs. "All humans are welcome in Monster Dorm. Pack is pack, regardless of species."